you do anyway?
I'm a writer, I guess.
Yes, don't you know?
You get 2 sheets every Saturday. You put the clean sheet in the top sheet in the bottom sheet you turn in the laundry board. Any man turns in the wrong sheet spends the night in the box. No one will sit in the bunks with dirty pants on. Any man with dirty pants on sitting on the bunk spends the night in the box. Any man don't bring back his empty pop bottle spends the night in the box. Any man loud talking spends the night in the box.
It's the Al Travis Show, and I always love having Senator Putnam on, but we're now into the time where if our friendship can withstand the next 3 weeks, we'll be fine. How you doing, Senator?
I'm doing well. Let's get us through the next 3 minutes and see how it goes.
Well, yeah, the next 30 minutes might be the end of it, but I'm just, when you came on, got ready, I said, I'm just thinking I couldn't imagine being in your shoes. To sit at the Capitol on either side of this fence and think you're going to get any work done in the next 3 weeks, when, in my opinion, we can't even come up with the simplest solutions. We can't even agree on some things that I think are pretty obvious. There's no way you're going to get down to the nitty gritty. And can we discuss?
Let's.
Okay, this is going to be tough. I had Senator Carla Nelson on. Was it yesterday? God, the days run together. It was last week. Whatever. I had her on. And I have no doubt in my mind the idea to throw the bill up about boys and boys sports, girls and girls sports, and all the rest of that she threw out there was to put everybody on the record. We got elections coming up. I have no doubt that's what that was. Now, I'm just going to sit here, Al Travis on the radio guy. I have no problem saying I want girls to compete in girls sports and guys in guy sports. Call me old-fashioned. I'm an old man. I get it. But I remember the 70s when we were fighting for Title IX. I was like 8. I wasn't. It's the first political thing I remember, to be quite honest with you. The first political thing I remember is what was the name? The 3 beautiful girls who lived across the street. They were older than me. They were in high school, and I was in love with them. Not going to remember their names off the top of my head. Anyway, they were in basketball there and all this stuff, and so we had, we're going to get Title IX, and then we're going to have as many sports as you guys do. And I thought to myself, why don't they? It just made sense that women should have as many sports as guys do and have opportunity. I was 8. I'm like, if those girls like it, I like it. I mean, I wanted to be their buddy. They were gorgeous. Why can't I remember their names? Because it's 60 years ago. Anyway, so that's the first thing I remember is this Title IX fight. I was too young for anything else. Now we're at it 60 years later, and we're to the point where, well, might as well get rid of Title IX. We don't need women's sports. If everybody can play everybody's sports, the one they want to, and I think that hurts women in the long run. That's my old-fashioned thought. I get Carla Nelson's putting you all on the paper, or on paper, and just so everybody knows, it went right down party lines. Republicans for, Democrats against, everyone, no one cross ship. Your thoughts, sir?
It's not a real issue. That's my concern. That's where I start. There's 2 concerns. One is the prominence of the issue. The second is enforcement. So there are 500,000 athletes, college athletes right now in the United States. You know how many trans athletes there are?
I would have no idea.
10. There are 10 trans athletes in the entire NCAA of 550,000 athletes.
Okay.
And now the other part of that is that what are we going to do to enforce this and figure out how it works? Are we going to have like official government junk inspectors who look at your stuff before you compete?
See, and this is me being crazy old guy again. I think back to I was 8 years old and I knew what guys and girls were because I was in love with the girls across the street. Inherently, I knew that at 8. I presume the doctors, when you're born, many of them can tell the difference and they put it on your birth certificate. I've seen it. Mine had one. I don't know. I wasn't checked. My point is there. And this idea that it's only a small number so it doesn't matter. What did you say, 5,000? 500?
500,000.
No, that's how many people in total. How many transgendered or how many in 10. The other sport? 10. All right, so those 10, and let's just say one's at University of Minnesota. He's not. I don't know. But my point is, so that one now dresses and does the business with the ladies in their locker room. So that affects however many on the team, basketball team, 10 other people. They're going to have to accept it, have to see the junk and do the rest. This athlete will now go play in those 22 basketball games at other colleges and be a part of those other athletes' lives as well, whether they like it or not, right? You play for Indiana. This gal's coming and going to play. It affects more than just 10 humans. It affects all those people that would play there. It would affect all the other locker rooms what he's going to go into. And again, I'll say this. I said it. I don't know who, and I got in trouble, but I'll get in trouble again. If I can speak for everyone, please, 99.9% of all Americans. At my age, I don't care. You can do you. You want to be my next door neighbor, and we used to call them cross-dressers. Now they're transgender. Fine. I don't really care what the label is. Do you? I really don't care. As soon as I care is when you say, but I also want to go in the restroom with your wife. Now I'm piqued my interest. Now I'm in the game. Now I want to think. And then you say, I want to compete against your daughter in sports. Now I'm in. You get my point? I think 99.9% of the time, I don't care. But back to, I don't think we're going to solve this problem here. I got what Carla did. Senator Nelson, I'm sorry. Putting you all on record, and this is the conversation we're going to have for 10 human beings across the nation. Okay, if it's such a small thing, why wouldn't we fall on the error on the side of the poor gals that have to compete against the guy?
Well, it's a couple things. So one, I'll go back to the enforcement issue. You mentioned bathrooms. We're not about to go banning homeschools because they don't have gender-specific bathrooms. Like, that's not a real thing that's going to happen in the world. I know I told you that joke already, but you're supposed to laugh the second time.
Well, I'm scared to share. This is the problem. You bring this up, and I said, yeah, go ahead. So I live in a very old house. At one point, my house was a home for handicapped men, mentally handicapped adults. 9 men lived here.
You mean at one point?
Well, thank you. Put somebody with a drum. So the upstairs restroom, which used to be an old room, is large enough. It actually has 2 of everything: 2 toilets, 2 tubs, 2 sinks, and it had the old separator things in there. 30 years later, except for the dividers, we took those out the first week. That bathroom hasn't changed. We're looking to remodel, by the way. Let me know if you can do it. We have matching toilets right next to each other. One is a men's for me, and one's my wife's. We don't cross toities in my house, and I'm sure she's hating that I'm sharing that.
That is so romantic. So romantic.
Everyone who walks through my house said, you guys use that a lot? No, not together. It's amazing how often you'll just wait until she's out of the room before you go in.
But here's another thing I want to bring up just real quick, if you don't mind. Do you remember Castro Samaya? Do you remember Castro Samaya? I'm probably saying her last name wrong. But this is 30 years ago. She won an Olympic gold medal from South Africa in the women's leaders. Yep. Afterwards, folks are like, wow, she seems kind of manly. And they tested her, which is already intrusive and obnoxious. And they found out that she was born with really high testosterone levels.
Fair enough.
Why did we not freak out about that then? Because Carla Nelson didn't give a speech about it.
Well, back to your testing and this junk inspector, and there's some grade level. I mean, obviously we'd have to do this. But when you're talking to the college ranks and you're talking the Olympics and that sort of thing, they do blood tests already to find out if you're, taking steroids or whatever. I'm pretty sure they can check your XY genes at the same time, and you wouldn't have to get any extra bloodletting to find out if you're XX or XY while they're testing to see if you got horse steroids in you to make you a better weightlifter. I think they can do that.
So they don't do that in all sports, and they don't do it at all levels. I was a Division II track runner. I never got.
Get out! Were you very fast? You don't come across as a runner.
Really good. That was 50 pounds ago. Thanks for bringing it up. But I was actually a pretty good athlete back in the day.
Okay.
And as a Division II athlete, in fact, my coach was the Olympic decathlon coach. I used to train with the Olympic decathlon team.
Get out of here!
No, it's true. Long time.
And you ended up here? I mean, on my show?
Well, I wasn't an Olympian. I was the guy who.
I can think all those hours of running. You're like, boy, if I could just get to that Al Travis show someday. You had to have higher dreams. Anyway, here's the point. So, do you think it would have been fair, you in your 20s as a prime athlete, and you said, you know what? I'm not going to the Olympics this way. I'm not that good. I'm realizing it. But I could crush it in the girls' side. Would that be fair?
I'm not going to get surgery for that. Like, that's an
well. Most of these have never had surgery. They might have had the blockers or whatever they call it, but most are not surgical. We're not talking the 10 that have surgery. We're talking guys playing in women's sports. The swimmer guy who ticked off Riley chick. He hasn't had the surgery.
No, I think we're talking about more than just cross-dressing. We're talking about actually being trans. And I'm not going to do that. Even if I were a Division I athlete, even if I were an Olympian, I'm not going to make that level of alteration.
My point is, you don't have to make the alteration to join. If you just wanted to really own the medals, you could. There's no rule saying you have to have surgery to be there. Anyway, we're not going to solve this here. My point being is, if we can't decide these things, I would throw the next one at you as we're going to go to break. and then I'll let you think about it. So we came up with 2 years ago this illegal immigrant Minnesota Care plan that if you're here, you got an address, and you don't make any money because, well, can't get a job, I presume, you can get Minnesota Care. And the guy who comes up with the idea and how much it's going to cost thought it'd be about 5,000 folks going to sign up. And you guys passed it. Every right to do it. All three legs of the stool, you can pass what you want. 3 months into it, 17,000 illegals have signed up for Minnesota Care. And that's in the first 3 months. This thing I would call a bit of a runaway train. I love the paper today. More people want it than we expected. You gave it away for free. We'll talk about it coming up after this with Senator Aric Pratt. You know that car sound that sounds like a cricket playing a banjo? Jay's can fix that. You know when you step on the brakes and your car sounds like a pair of tennis shoes in the dryer? Paul is a guy who specializes in that. And you know that sound that never happens when the mechanic's around? Paul took a whole course on that. If you own a car, you need to know Paul. Paul owns Jay's Auto Shop, 202 North Main Street, Blue Earth, 525-1052, 525-1052.
There are many ways to explore Alexandria. Some like to experience the outdoors and all the fun winter in Minnesota can provide. Pick your favorite way to get in touch with nature. Others like to explore downtown in the warm comfort of a boutique or gathered around a table with friends. You can do all of that or relax and do nothing at all. Come explore Alexandria. Start planning at explorealex.com.
The Al Travis Show, the last place you can go and hear all sides. Respectful, thoughtful, and grateful.
And this is the opportunity for Senator Aric Putnam to tell me how cracked I am in the head, and I get it. Maybe I am. So I led with the Minnesota Care Program for illegal immigrants in Minnesota. It was supposed to be about 5,000. I think 5,700 was the guesstimate, and it went over 17,000 in the first 3 months. Couple of things. We just didn't know how many illegal immigrants are here. Maybe they're 3 times more than we thought. The same folks get, what is that, $80,000. If you make it less than $80,000, you can get free college education as well. Here's where I'm coming from, Senator. We have a $6 billion shortfall coming. Now, these are two programs that were passed 2 years ago. Had the money. You guys were in charge. I'm not ripping the fact it happened. Maybe I would have wrote it differently, but it happened. But now when we look, what do we have to cut back on? What do we got to say whoa on because we're going to be $6 billion short? I sit here as just a guy who just got his final 2 kids through college, had to pay, have to have health insurance, the Obamacare thing, because if we're all getting the pool together, then it's cheaper for everybody. That didn't really work out too well. I have a tough time that I am paying for Minnesota Care for folks who technically aren't even here illegal. Let alone now if they're here, they're obviously not making enough money. That's why they're on the Minnesota Care. They also get to send their kids to college for free. If we're going to cut something back, I think that's okay. That'd be one of those I would look at. But that's another one where the lines are drawn on each side of the fence and it's not moving anywhere.
I think part of that has to do with some misinformation that we're dealing with right now.
Give it to me, my friend.
Well, 17,000 people may have enrolled, but what does that cost us? The issue is how many claims were made. So you're seeing this math out there that says 17,000 people enrolled, it's going to cost us $200 million. That's bonkers, because at this point, we've had 3,000 claims made for less than $3 million. So the cost of that program right now is $3 million. It's not.
But you have to, you actually, I mean, if you have health insurance, at some point you use it, I presume. I mean, I don't go very often. I lose money on health insurance. I just don't go that much. But I know others who go for everything. I mean, it will average out 17,000 people. But that's back to my point about who makes this up, the Office of Management Budget or whoever comes up with a number. You think 5,000 are going to get in. How often do 5,000 people use insurance? I don't know, but there's got to be a number somewhere. The insurance industry has it. 1 in 3, whatever the number is. Okay, you do the math. It comes out to 17,000. Are they just healthier than the rest of us? They went and got insurance. They didn't need it. At some point, they're going to use it, and that number will go up to 1 in 3 or whatever there's actuarials on this that most people in that business would know. It's going to end up costing us that in the long run.
See, I don't know that that's the case necessarily. What are the odds that 17,000 people are all going to get catastrophically ill? They're pretty.
Well, not all 17,000. It's a numbers game. If 5,000 were to get in and 1 in 10 is catastrophic, that's whatever number. If 17,000 get in, 1 in 10 get catastrophic. It's just a math problem.
Sure, but the other part of the math equation is important too, because the undocumented immigrants in the state of Minnesota spend $211 million in taxes every year. So it's not like this is some sort of sense of freeloading. They spend.
Can I ask how they do that? If you are here illegally, you don't have a Social Security, how do you pay taxes in the state of Minnesota? What do you file under?
Well, there's sales taxes and income taxes, and I don't know how those things are calculated.
Okay.
But I've heard that number a lot, and I'm naive.
I read that in the paper, and that's the first thing that comes to mind. The only way I can see you spending taxes is you buy stuff and you pay a sales tax, but you surely can't go to the state of Minnesota. And by the way, I'm illegal. I don't have a Social Security number, but here's my address. I mean, I can't imagine that's going on any mass scale. That would seem self-defeating.
Like when you're going to buy a hot dog, you don't say, "Oh, by the way, I'm undocumented." Calculate this tax towards that. So I don't know how they come up with the number.
See that?
On that one, I don't know how they come up with the number.
That's back to the same guy who said 5,000 will sign up and 17 did. A lot of this is that way, but that's back to me hating the job you have. And by the way, thanks for doing it because I wouldn't do it. But when a track star's future collapses, this is where you end up. You would be at a documentary.
It's actually truer than you think it is.
But no, the idea that people throw out stuff all the time, this is the number of people do this, and it never comes out to that number. I would be scared to death, and I just want to put it on the record, scared to death, this paid family leave thing. Again, back to, how would you guess this number? Who's the guy who has to come up with a number? Everybody's got it in Minnesota now coming next year. How many are going to use it? How many grandparents are going to get sick? How many aunts and uncles? How many going to... This is an octopus with 200 tentacles. There's no way they're going to be able to predict it, and I'm going to guess it'll be more expensive, not less. We tend to go the other way.
Well,
Thoughts?
That's the thing. I think you're right. Like, and I'm glad I'm not that person who's doing that math, but there are people who are doing that math. And the same people who are kind of actuarying out how many people are going to have injuries or illnesses that need medical care are the same people who are trying to figure out how much it's going to cost. And they can do math better than both of us, so more power to them, brother. I don't want to have anything to do with it.
They're not going to Christmas parties. They're not going to anybody's house for the barbecue. Because can you imagine chatting with that human being about how his work today? Did I tell you about the actuaries on the Holy crap. Sorry.
Do you think they just hang out with each other? Do you think they just get together like with each other?
if there's anybody in the state government that is allowed, and I was going to bring this up, we don't have time. This idea that now they've changed the 50% back, going back to the work rule, right? They now change that to 50 miles or more out, then you don't have to follow it. We can talk about that another time. If there's any,
news, by the way, in case you need it, I think that was bad news, but keep going.
And we're going to talk about that next week. I ran out of time, but remind me. If there's anyone that can work from home and just stay in the basement and do this, is the actuarially guy that has to figure out how many people are going to sign up for free health care. You do it from home. Be on your computer, buddy.
That job sound pretty good to me right now. I made some bad
Yes, because all you got to do is come up with the numbers and let Senator Putnam have to read them all. Now you got to read them and figure it out.
Called me Pratt. That hurts.
You know what? Because it was on a thing. He signed, and we didn't get to that either. He's going to one of those that might be running for that Senate seat or the House seat. Sure. So I just read that story. I don't know why in the world that keeps sticking in my head. I apologize, my friend. It's just because I read stuff, and then some sticks and some doesn't, and then
That's what you get for reading. You got to stop this whole reading thing. It does nothing but get you in trouble.
It does, because it makes me mad. All right. You know I love having you on the program, my friend. I appreciate you being here.
Great to see you, dude. See you next week.
See you next week. He is Senator Aric Putnam on the Al Travis Show.